Hey Award Nerds, Editor Kate here, and I am so excited about today's video. I recently had the chance to sit down and have a really great conversation with author L.E. Richmond, whose debut novel, The Mermaid's Tale, comes out this October. I'll put links to her social media and pre-order links for her book in the description. Check it out, you don't want to miss this one. I'd love to hear what started your journey as a writer.
Yes. So what started my journey as a writer is that I was actually working as a receptionist during college, and my place of employment was really nice. They were like, "Hey, if the phone's not ringing, you can do homework." So I did that during college, and then in December 2019, I graduated, and I was like, "What am I going to do now? Like, I don't have homework anymore." And so I actually was like, I'm gonna write a book. So I wrote a book. It was not The Mermaid's Tale. I'm not sure that that book will ever see the light of day, but I wrote a book, and I sent it to my mom, who she's great. She's really good about giving honest feedback. And so she was like, Laura, it's actually good. Like, maybe you could like publish it. So I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And I listened to podcasts. I was like, "I want to be traditionally published." That was just me. So I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna do all the querying and stuff." Got a lot of rejects.
Oh yeah.
I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna write a different book." And so I wrote another one. And that one I love. It hasn't found a home, but I hope someday it will.
Oh good.
Uh, and again, I did the querying thing, still no interest. I was like, "Fine, I will write a fantasy. Everyone loves fantasy."
I mean,
And that was The Mermaid's
yeah.
Tale.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, it's writing is such a weird process.
It is.
I feel
Oh,
like something I've seen with a lot of authors and interviews that I've heard is the first book you write, no one ever wants to share it with anyone. Like that is practice. It gets you into kind of the writing habit and teaches you how to write in a longer form, and then you bury it where no one will ever see it.
absolutely. Yeah. Or like Thomas Umstattd Jr. says, the first law of book marketing is that you don't publish your first book first. So even if it comes
Yeah,
out later,
you go back and
often,
fix
yeah,
it.
it needs some tweaks and whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I know from your Instagram that you're also a mom,
Yes. Yes.
and I am sure that makes finding time to write very hard. Do you have, I've heard so many different things from people about write every day or just try and find dedicated time semi-regularly to write. Are you kind of a everyday kind of writer? Are you like once a week I'll sit down and have writing time or somewhere in the middle?
Yeah. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think that having regularity with your writing is good because obviously books are thousands of words long.
Yeah.
And so waiting for the inspiration to strike is a little hard to actually get it done. Um, but what usually happens for me, my parents live in town, again, super great, and they watch my kids for me twice a week,
Mm.
for a longer chunk of time when I write. And then my oldest is 3.5, and he still takes naps. So
Mm.
that's my
Yep.
time that I try to do about an hour every day while they're napping. And that's what's worked for me to find
Yeah.
that kind of rhythm for myself.
With 6 books under your belt, then, are you more of a plotter, plot out the whole story ahead of time, more of a pantser, just start writing and see what happens? A lot of people are a mix, I know.
Sure.
But do you have one that you prefer?
Oh, I'm such a pantser. It's
Uh-huh.
it's not funny. I I usually write a very, like, when I say general outline, I'm like back of the envelope kind of outline. Like,
Hmm.
it's very general. Um to have an idea of just the arc of it being like it's going to end here, it starts here,
Right.
here's what the
Yeah.
problem is kind of deal.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, I learn things about the story as I write.
Yeah.
The last book I wrote, somebody died that I was like, "Oh, I didn't expect that to
Oh
happen, but
boy.
there you go." So,
Surprise, I guess.
I know, surprise. Uh, so yes, no, I'm a discovery writer, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, oh, that's neat. I'm very much a plotter, so
Oh
I
yeah.
I find that so fascinating because I do still make discoveries while I write,
Sure.
but I just feel like I would panic so much if I sat down
Mhm.
to write and didn't
Didn't
know
know.
what I was supposed to be doing.
Sure.
Because that's
How long do you usually spend plotting beforehand?
oh,
What does
that's
that
a
look like for
really
you?
great question. So I only have two manuscripts finished under my belt.
That's still great, yeah.
And one of them I wrote in college through NaNoWriMo,
Yeah,
and I
okay.
haven't gone back and looked at it, so it would need a lot of help. The
Sure.
other started as a short story
Oh
that
yeah.
I then expanded into a novel, so I didn't do my normal plotting for that because I already
Mm,
had, well, this is the arc, I just have to expand it into a much larger story.
sure.
So I'm currently working on a third manuscript right now, and I've been brainstorming and plotting out some things for I think like off and on for a month or so. And I'll probably try and do maybe another month or two to really get
Mhm.
things hammered out, some of the
Yeah.
major beats before I start writing. It's so interesting to learn about how other people write because
Yes, I agree.
it's this thing that so many of us have in common in this community. I mean, all of
Mhm.
us in the community, writing community,
Right.
but everyone approaches it so differently.
Yes, I
Yeah.
know. No, it is. It's fascinating.
Hmm. Do you tend to go through a lot of drafts? Do you do a lot of editing as you go, or how do you approach
Yeah. Uh,
polishing?
mhm. What I typically do is, I like to kind of edit as I go in that, yeah, I write a little bit of, I guess slow is all relative. I write a slightly slower pace, or what
Hmm.
I would consider, to try to get it fairly clean to begin with.
Right.
And then, again, my mom and my sisters are actually they love books, so they're good beta readers for me.
Yeah.
Um, and they usually I go through myself, I self-edit after finishing a draft, then I send it to them, put in their edits,
Hmm.
and then obviously like with The Mermaid's Tale, I submitted my initial first chapter to one of ACFW's competitions,
Oh,
the
neat. Okay.
Genesis. I hope that's
Sounds
the
vaguely
correct
familiar.
name, but yeah, again, it's first
Yeah.
chapter competition.
Hmm.
And that was actually great for me in that my first chapter was not good. Like it was too it didn't jump into the story enough. It was too
Hmm.
technical, too like this is what the world's about, but
Yeah.
boring. So I actually got good feedback from them to be like, hey, we don't really know like who your character is and
Hmm.
stuff just on that first chapter.
Yeah.
And so I from that was like, okay, wrote a new first chapter, moved some stuff around with that. And then after I submitted to Enclave, actually, in this case, they said, hey, we really like the story,
Mm.
but we would like you to switch one of the perspectives because
Ooh.
I had a dual perspective.
Hmm.
And with the guy's perspective, you could tell it was a girl writing. So
Mm.
he was like, hey, you
Yeah.
want to switch? I'd like you to switch that to a third. And so I did that, and then obviously once you sign, there are several rounds of edits.
Oh,
So
yes.
I don't know, quite a few drafts at this point.
Yeah. So you've done a lot of book writing. Are you interested in other types of writing as well, like articles or short stories or poetry or anything like that? Or are books
Yeah.
kind of your main focus?
Yes. Books are my main focus. I
Hmm.
love to read. So
Yeah.
and books again is where I usually read.
Hmm.
But I guess probably the other area that's interesting to me is through Instagram. It's become almost like a mini blog. There are people who
Yeah.
do really well. I guess writing very meaningful captions.
Hmm.
Um I think of like Nadine Brands. I
Oh, yeah.
really enjoy seeing how she's using that platform to speak about her faith and relationship to God, and
Yeah.
how that influences her writing, her family. Obviously, she has a really, really cute kids. That's
Oh,
fun.
yes.
Like just telling those stories. Um, so honestly, that whatever mini blogging is
Hmm.
probably where more of my interest would be.
Yeah. No, that's really neat. It's been so interesting to watch Instagram grow from more than just pictures to the
Sure.
captions really being as important, if not more important, than the pictures you're showing. So, this is a question. I don't know if you have an answer. I just know that some people have very strong opinions about writing advice.
Hmm.
And yeah, everyone always wants to know what's your advice for writers. I don't like asking that because
Yeah.
it's just so weird. But
Sure.
I do like to ask people, other writers when I meet them, like what sticks in your mind as either the best or worst piece of writing advice you've ever gotten?
Yeah. Um, it's a great question.
Because there's a lot out
I
there.
Yes. I actually would say I've overall gotten good writing advice.
That's
I don't
great.
have a particular negative piece.
Hmm.
But the first writing conference I went to was the Northwestern Christian Writers Conference in
Hmm.
Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And um Julie Clausen taught a class,
Mm,
and she said what's most important as an author is to write the next great book. I'm not quoting her entirely correctly, but basically she was like, just keep writing books.
hmm.
Don't get so caught up in marketing, in social
Yeah.
media, in whatever. Like again, those are good tools, but that the idea was she's like, write the next book, write the
It
next book.
doesn't matter if you build an audience if you don't have another book
Yes,
to give them.
agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes this also ties in with Thomas Umstattd Jr. I really enjoy novel marketing, his
Hmm.
podcast. That I think sometimes as authors we can get so in love with one book that we write, which is
Mm,
great. Again, it's your brainchild, but so in love with that book that we can't let it go or
yep.
even shelve it for a time. And it's like if maybe there even is a place in the world for that book, but sometimes you do need kind of a back door to that. You do need to write another story.
Hmm.
So again, if anyone was asking for my writing advice, I would be like,
Yeah.
write another book.
Yeah.
If it's been a good while of querying, shelve it, write something else.
Come
And
back.
maybe
Yep.
that would even be your opening for that other story that you love.
Yeah. So much of publishing is just about timing, I've learned.
Yes.
It's there are so many reasons for an agent or a publisher or an editor to say no to a project, and very
Sure.
few of those reasons are this is not good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's so interesting. So I work as a copy editor at a publishing
Oh,
house
that's
and
awesome.
have
Cool.
worked at a
Yeah.
magazine before. And so I see this other side of the whole business that a lot of writers don't get to see, and it's really fascinating. Do you have any favorite writing tools, I guess? I know some people have a software that they really like, or like they like doing like cork boards with story beats and index cards and stuff like that, or uh,
Ugh,
I,
that's super. Yeah.
I mean
Again,
I'm a plotter and I don't even do that.
yeah, I actually don't as far as writing,
Yeah, that's
but
totally fine.
for marketing,
Mm,
I've really liked I use MailerLite for
mm-hmm,
my email list. And for me, that worked way better than MailChimp because uh, they have a better. I was using a reader magnet, a short story on my website
mm-hmm,
for the email signups. And I was just having a really, really hard time connecting MailChimp and my
mm,
website, which this could be because I was just doing it wrong. But MailerLite made it possible for even, you know, maybe not the techiest savvy me to figure that out.
yeah.
So MailerLite has been great. And then I use Story Origin also
Okay.
for trying to grow the
Mm.
mailing list because from everything I've ever heard, email list is where it is still at.
It's
So
the big thing.
yeah,
Well, let's dive into The Mermaid's Tale. Haha, dive in.
great.
That was not intentional, but it works.
It does work.
So give us the back cover copy, the two paragraph pitch. What is your book about? Yeah.
It is about a tailless mermaid who is
Mm,
the great great granddaughter of the original Little Mermaid and is cursed because the original Little Mermaid double crossed the sea enchantress.
ooh,
So when her niece is also born with legs, she wants to send her to school in Atlantis,
mm,
where everybody or the majority, the elite, have legs. So she's gotta get some treasure to do that because
Mm-hmm.
gotta have money to go to
Yep.
Atlantis. And her the brother of her brother-in-law, whatever that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the
It's
word
like
for it is.
technically in-laws, but like once removed.
Once, yeah,
I
yep,
don't
brother of
know.
brother-in-law. He's a treasure hunter, and so
Mm.
they kind of team up to get that figured out for their niece.
What sort of themes does the story explore?
Yeah. It it's just interesting because I had to answer some of that for Enclave 2
Mm-hmm.
as asking for Christian themes. And
Yeah.
they're really great because Steve Lobby, who founded it, he would say that what makes a story Christian fantasy is the faith of the author.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a God figure, the Wave Master, but it's not a huge allegory. The themes more are those of sacrifice for those
Mm.
you care about, for kind of the bonds of love, for dealing with people that you don't like at first glance, and
Mm-hmm.
also um, accepting how you were made and the value that's in that, even if other people cannot see it.
Mm. Oh, that's so good. Oh, I can't wait to read this. Is there a specific moment you remember where either you got the inspiration for this story or where a couple different ideas just kind of came together all at once?
Yes, actually. I I was actually looking at an agent's wish list, and
Mm.
she said I would like a story about a mermaid. It was on this agent's wish list, and I was like, a mermaid with legs. Like, what would
Ooh.
the like that idea of being like, what could be different? What could not
Yeah.
be this typical mermaid story? I'm like, if the mermaid has legs,
Hmm.
that would be different, right? And
Awesome.
I love retellings also. I just feel like it's a good retelling. It has this newness, but at the same
Hmm.
time, I think we always love the familiar as well. And so that as a reader getting to be like, oh my gosh, I see how you connected
I get
that,
it.
like
I
is
get
so fun. Uh
it.
so anyway, I was like, oh, it's a spin-off, I guess technically more than a retelling, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
connect it
Yeah.
to that original fairy tale like this,
Yeah.
that she's cursed.
Oh, that's so
So,
cool.
yeah, that was my original, and I actually wrote part of it, then took a break and wrote a contemporary romance. And when I came back, I was like, oh, I think it needs to be dual perspective. I mean, again,
Yeah.
I started it and was just Lachlan's perspective. I was like, I think we gotta
Need something
add
else.
something
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
It's so crazy how stepping away from a story for a couple weeks, a couple months, sometimes longer,
Mhm.
and then coming back to it. It's hard to even say with fresh eyes because it is still the story that you wrote and came up with, but having
Yes.
taking that time apart, partly to come back when it's not all right in the front of your brain to look at, but also I feel like even when I'm not working on stories, the back of my brain is still turning on a few
Yeah.
things. And I'll find that sometimes I haven't been working on a story for several weeks, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, this is what I need to do. And like, I'm not even
Yes.
working on it. Like, I'll be doing something else. And be like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, your brain's just like
Yeah.
working away in the background.
Hmm.
It's really cool.
The agent who wanted a mermaid story, is that the agent you ended up with, or?
It actually is
Uh,
not. I don't actually, I'm trying to remember. I don't think I ended up sending The Mermaid's Tale to her,
hmm.
actually.
Hmm.
Um, I don't have an agent. It was one of those networking things. I met a really cool gal at the Northwestern Christian Writers Conference,
Hmm.
and she is friends with Kathy McCrum, loves Recorder so much. Great hype woman. And so
Hmm.
she told me about Recorder. I read Recorder. I really loved it. And I was
Yeah.
like, wait, who published her? And I actually had read some other Enclave books as well. I'm
Mm.
not really putting those dots together. And I was like, oh, Enclave's cool. I'll
Yeah.
I'll I'll submit to them.
Yeah. No, I've liked quite a few of their books. Which character are you most excited to introduce to your readers? I know very often writers will kind of latch on to one specific character. I notice more often than not it's like a side character,
Y- You know, the funny
but
thing
like
about that, yes. Um, I was actually going to say that I love characters to me are what make a story.
mhm.
Like I just um example being like Anne of Green Gables. In
Oh,
some ways you're like that's
yes.
kind of a boring story. Like not
Yeah,
really,
not
but
much happens.
there's no big thing that happens
Yeah.
really. But you're like you love the people. That's
Hmm.
why people care about this.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, side soapbox. But anyway, the one of my characters, which I love them all, but one of my characters that I'm very fond of is she is technically a side character. She's like the warrior queen of the
Mm.
neighboring kingdom, became queen at 10.
Oh wow.
So very tough. Uh, but she kind of has this unrequited love for her childhood friend and like
Mm.
a softer side. Um, again in the next book she's very close with her sisters also, so again pretty snarky, pretty hard,
Love
but with
that.
that like soft underbelly. So
Oh, that's so great. Um, what's something that you have in common with Lachlan and with Darren, who I believe are your two POV
they
characters?
are,
Okay.
yeah, it's a good question. um you know, with Lachlan I would actually probably say uh insecurity,
Mm.
that I you know, for various different things, sometimes physical appearance, sometimes how much you think people are going to like you
Hmm.
or what they think of you. I definitely have struggled with that all my life of wanting people to like me
Hmm.
and of, I guess, having this voice in my mind that is like, they're not going to, you're not cool enough. Um, and that obviously, number one, that isn't, I guess, valuing yourself like God would value you, that He made you the way you are and gave you specific strengths and things that you can bring to the table. But it's also a vicious cycle of
Hmm.
if you think that about yourself, the likelihood is actually that people then will be less like confidence is attractive,
Hmm.
basically.
Oh yeah.
Uh, so anyway, insecurity would probably be actually the thing with her, and then Darren. That's a good question.
It doesn't have
I
to
don't
be
know that I
anything
see
super
my
deep.
yeah, I'm not sure if I see myself as much in him
Okay.
necessarily. It's more I like him, which is
Hmm.
which might sound weird to say, but he's less, and don't get me wrong, I like the good whatever bad boy romance as much as anyone, but he he's more a protector,
Mm.
strong um leader, but again with a he's good.
Do you have a favorite fairy tale?
Yes, actually.
Okay. Is it The Little
It
Mermaid?
no.
Oh, okay.
No. The Little Mermaid is classic,
It is.
but the original is a little bit of a downer, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's a much more bittersweet ending.
Yeah. Yeah. My favorite fairy tale is King Thrushbeard, which is
Oh.
yeah, it's a Grimm's fairy tale. I don't know if you read it.
Hmm.
Yes. I I really love it because the main character is actually not likable. I've
Yeah.
and in some ways it's that really like character growth of being like,
Hmm.
hey, you know, just being proud and rude to people is not a
Not gonna
good
work out for you in the long
setup
run.
in life, and that's gonna come back to bite you. So
Yep.
anyway, that actually I actually have written a retelling of that, but it's modern.
Where can readers find you virtually speaking?
Yes. I am mostly on Instagram, and
Hmm.
that's just at LE Richmond. And I am on Facebook. Um, and I do have an email list. So I send out a monthly email. My uh, website is Laura Richmond Writes. And if you want a short story about Ginevra the Warrior Queen and Conway's the
Hmm.
Prince of the Other Kingdom, there's a short story about when they were kids that I give away when you sign up for my email list.
Nice. Yeah,
Okay.
I know I signed up for your email list I don't remember if I actually read the story or if I was going to wait since it
Totally
connected to the book until I
understandable.
read the book.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
When does your book come out? The Mermaid's Tale comes out this
Yes.
fall.
The Mermaid's Tale comes out October 10th.
October 10th.
October
Awesome.
10th, and pre-orders are open for those hardcovers. So,
Mhm.
if you want it on your doorstep on October 10th, that is a possibility.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you so much. I really
Yeah.
am honored.
Oh, no,
And it
I'm,
was great to chat.
yeah, honored as well.